Men have a hard time dealing with women cheating. One that we did just disclose that it's usually more emotional driven, right? Also, on top of that, it was stated, and I quote, men make on average about 6 times more than a woman.
Yes.
Okay. So now, if I'm a man and I'm paying for you, right? I'm not paying for you to own you, but I'm paying. You get what I'm saying?
What are you paying?
What are you paying?
Everything.
We're going to go ahead and get things going with our cast.
Hey, you already know the vibes. It's your boy Rico, aka Mr. Big 30 right now. Listen, that's gonna be my name for the rest of my life. And that's where we're gonna stick with. Yeah.
Ciao.
It's your girl Amanda. Welcome back, guys.
And we have our very special guest. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hello. My name is Mac, and I'm a licensed mental health therapist with a specialization in couples therapy. Thank you for having me.
Can you give us a little bit more background? I know you mentioned that you specialize in infidelity recovery. I want to know what's been your journey here.
So
And what sets your practice apart from other therapists?
So I'm a Gottman level 3 trained therapist, which means to me Gottman is like the Michael Jordan of couples therapy.
Ooh.
So I've gone through those type of trainings that allows me to work with Black couples very efficiently with amazing result, because the way that I conduct therapy is based on research, not based on perspectives or opinion. So infidelity recovery was due to the fact that I knew so many relationships that were struggling due to infidelity. And what's interesting is that the stronger relationships actually can come out of infidelity, because it forces couples to have the conversations that they actually need to have, right? So based on that specialty, I have been able to be of service to the Black community, and I hope that I can continue doing so.
Fabulous. Where can they find you? All with all your apps and website and all that good stuff.
Well, you can find me on IG. I talk to Mac _therapist, talk TALK, the number 2, Mac MAC _therapist. And if you're looking to work with me, you can find me at therapyisforeveryone.org.
Fabulous. So let's get into it. Today we're going to be talking about why are you in your feelings, and whether you being your feelings creates a sense of resentment when it with respect to your relationships. So Marie, tell us exactly what that means.
So resentment is a psychological state arising from suppressed feelings of envy, hatred that cannot be acted upon, frequently resulting in basically self-abasement. So essentially, when you're not expressing or communicating something that you feel, whether you were wronged and you hold it in and you're not expressing it to your partner or anyone else, it's we call resentment the silent killer, right? Because it's almost like a cancer. It has the ability to just slowly grow. At first, we don't recognize it, and we tend to just kind of push it away, and we don't talk about it, we don't confront it, and then eventually it has a way of eroding our relationships.
Gotcha. Well, you're the professional here. Tell us what's been your experience, as far as how resentment plays in people's relationships.
Especially infidelity.
Great question, right? So the actual term is contempt, and contempt is a 97 predictor of divorce. So meaning that if you're behaving contemptuously toward your partner, there is a 97% chance that you will be divorced in either 4 or 7 years. Because again, it's the silent killer, right? It's the act of belittling, name calling, and disrespecting your partner that eventually they're just going to get tired of it. For example, it could be like, you'd be nothing without me. I'm all that you have. You would not be here if it wasn't for me. Right? So without no therapeutic intervention, contempt will 100% kill your relationship
within due time.
for 7 years.
So is contempt the cause of resentment? Are we saying, or is it all in one?
So resentment is a form of contempt.
Okay, it's a form.
But the reason why that takes place is because, one, we're not voicing exactly what it is that we are feeling. We're not expressing our needs, or we don't even have the language to express exactly how we feel. And then we just expect our partner to just figure it out.
Fall in line. Should we get that?
Mac, is that considered one of the four horsemen of relationships when it comes to the Gothman Institute?
Yeah, so that's the third horseman of the apocalypse and the most deadliest one.
Oh, that's
Right.
the deadliest one?
Deadliest?
Yes, with a 97% accuracy and predictor of divorce.
So that's 1 out of 4, right?
That's 1 out of 4.
I know we talked about right. So in a I guess like a hierarchy scale, or like the most likelihood to be broken up or divorced, can we list them from the worst one down to the least worst?
Yeah, so it's a process. It starts with criticism. You're selfish. You don't care about me. You're egotistical. You never cared about this family or this relationship. So you're verbally punching your partner in the face. Now it's human nature that once you get attacked, to defend yourself. Comes in the second horseman, which is defensiveness. No, I didn't, but you did this, right? You defend yourself and then you attack your partner back. So you have criticism and defensiveness happening over and over. Eventually, the resentment kicks in, contempt, right? Because you're like, "You're nothing without me. Like, how dare you? Like, you wouldn't even be here if it wasn't for me." Now you're name calling, you're yelling, you are screaming, you are disrespecting the being of your partner. That's third. Then we go to stonewalling, and that's a silent treatment, which is 70% done by men. Because eventually we just become a wall, we remove ourselves from the conversation, and then we partake in the silent treatment.
Yeah, that sounds about accurate.
How many women? What's the percentage of women who engage in the silent treatment?
It's more common among men, but that's because 80% of the time it's women that are raising a complaint about the relationship. So stonewalling happens when you consistently feel criticized. Like what you're saying does not matter and no one is listening to you. So eventually, like, yo, I'm talking, you're jumping in, I can't even get one thing off, you're not listening to me, and it's just argument, so I'm just done. So I'm gonna just sit here and say nothing so this can be over with.
Sounds like me. I ate at the table. Wow.
Beg your pardon?
Sorry.
He'd be like, "Can I talk? Are you gonna let me talk?"
And I stonewall. Like, see, that's why. Okay, all right. I like where we're going with this. All right, so I have a question for you.
Talk to me, King.
All right, so one of your specialties is infidelity.
Infidelity recovery.
Infidelity recovery.
Yes, sir.
You're in a relationship,
I am.
married.
I've been with my partner for over 10 years.
Beautiful. Have you ever experienced infidelity within your own relationship?
I have not. It's the longest bid I've done, man.
The longest bid.
Not big.
He said what he said.
Right. But the key thing is, right, like, for those that are thinking they're ready for a relationship, ask yourself this question: am I disciplined enough? Because that's the key term, right? Am I disciplined enough to just be in one relationship? Am I disciplined enough to be monogamous? Am I disciplined enough to be committed to my partner as opposed to being loyal, right? Am I disciplined enough to learn how to communicate, to take accountability, and to just find ways to nurture this relationship?
Yeah.
It's easier said than done. I'll tell you that much.
100%. So, if I was somebody and I'm like, hey, look, because a lot of times people tend to discredit people when they have not lived in their shoes, right? So if I'm somebody who's having relationship issues because of infidelity, and I'm like, well, why would I take advice from someone who has never been in that position?
It's a great question.
How would you answer that?
If you needed to have heart open surgery, would you say I need a doctor that had heart open surgery, or I need a doctor that has done and knows the knowledge and the skills needed to complete heart open surgery?
I think that's a little bit of a reach
It's
because it's not the same.
concept.
It's
right?
not. It's the same concept if you wanted to compare apples and apples, but that's an orange. That would be more so like I would compare it to somebody saying, "All right, if I was a drug addicted to drugs, typically you see a lot of people who overcome their addiction are now the ones that's speaking on how to overcome those addictions. They don't really see people or seek help from people who have never been in their position. I understand what you're saying with the heart surgery, but what I'm saying is if you've never been in an infidelity, if in an infidel relationship, which is a beautiful thing, by the
Mhm.
way, it's like you've never dealt with that side of that person, that resentment that comes with it. And, so rather than giving me an analogy, what would be your response to somebody to make them more comfortable?
I got you right there. Insight does not equate to change. Just because you experience something doesn't mean that you can change it. Just because you have the knowledge that something's not good for you doesn't mean that you have the skills to change it. Well, when it comes to me, I've studied infidelity. I've been trained in it, right? So I've dealt with the research. I've put it into practice, and I've acquired the skills needed to be able to walk you from point A to the finish line. So it doesn't matter whether or not I experience it. And as a couples therapist, I'm not even telling you about my personal story because that doesn't matter to the therapeutic relationship. What matters is I have the skills that you're in need of, and I can take you from point A to point B, right?
Mhm.
So that would be my answer would be if I have the knowledge and I've done it and I can take you from point A to point B, why must I experience the same pain that you did or the lack of discipline that you showed for me to be qualified enough to walk you through exactly what you actually need?
I mean, because what I'm eventually going to tie into a correlation is that we try to add, and I said this before, validity to certain things. And sometimes experience is a better teacher than a book. And that's the only thing I was going to go with. But
For some,
for some, not for all,
correct.
So,
I would say that when it comes to a skill-based practice, the experience is not needed because at the end of the day, it's the skill that matters. And if you think about it, right, there's those that cheat and engage in infidelity find others that are partaking in the same behaviors,
mhm,
and they have yet to treat each other.
yeah, agree. Now, someone who was just say never monogamous, right? They
Hmm.
were constantly um, acting out of infidelity throughout their whole life,
Hmm.
say their whole adulthood. How does one become disciplined, practice that discipline to actually, I guess, live a monogamous lifestyle? Because mentally they say that they want to, but their actions aren't adding up to what their, mental is.
So when it comes to monogamy, none of us are monogamous. We're in the pursuit of monogamy, meaning that we're not born monogamous, right? Because it's a social concept that we're trying to fit ourselves into. So what I tend to ask couples to do is to have a conversation of what does monogamy mean to you and what does it look like? And does it fit the parameters of the relationship that you're trying to create? I prefer the term monogamish, right?
Ish.
Because the
Ish.
ish allows me to define it however fits this current relationship
Got
at this current time. But in terms of being disciplined, you just have to be willing to choose your partner on a daily basis and knowing that if you did that, the pain, the trauma, 5 years of PTSD is now worth your 3-minute experience.
What if it's 30 minutes?
Yeah, I was going to say 3 minutes.
I was thinking it in my head
Not
too.
3
Like,
minutes.
who's last 3 minutes?
Go ahead.
Oh,
You said half a day?
I'm actually glad you kind of brought up the discipline question.
One
Rico.
weekend trip.
Oh, you're out of
Why
here.
do-
You spent the whole weekend.
I mean, if you're gonna do it, you may as well do
You
it.
might as well go all the way.
Get
Right?
out of here.
If the result and the
I
consequence
don't need
is the
no
same,
therapist.
I
I don't
might as
need
well max
no.
out.
How you didn't even enjoy yourself?
right?
But
Maybe
again,
Monday.
like, those that engage in infidelity, 70% of the time is not seeking sex. They're seeking an emotional need that's not being met in the relationship.
Talk about it.
So in a lot of cases, especially for males, we're trying to explain how we feel, and it's not being responded to positively, or just in general, we're feeling neglected in many ways. So eventually, it's human nature to go seek that elsewhere because that's a need that needs to be taken care of, right? So infidelity does not mean I'm trying to get laid, I'm trying to bust a nut, or any of that. Most of the time is that we're not seeing eye to eye, my needs are not being met, and for some reason I am finding others that are giving me the attention, the validation, the respect, the words of affirmation that eventually grow to now becoming physical.
Well, I like how you taking it easy on the guys, right? I feel like this is true for a good man. Because, we all hear that, like, a guy cheats is different from them when a woman cheats, because women, they look for validation. They look for what they aren't getting in the relationship. And guys, they just want to bust a nut.
That's not true, though.
I feel like that's what
It
Rico-
depends.
I was about to say, Rico.
Is there clinical data to back that?
Yes, it's 70%.
Yes, for the
of those
numbers.
that engage in infidelity
Yes.
does for an emotional need. So if he says that he's trying to bust a nut,
Mhm.
there's a deeper meaning behind that. Us guys tend to be very limited in vocabulary and are so disconnected from their own needs that they can even voice exactly what emotion
That
that
they
they
need
are
more.
feeling,
Okay.
right? So it might be that I need to feel desired, and this individual that I'm trying to bust a nut with is making me feel like a king in the bedroom, and at home I'm not getting that. It's not about the nut.
That was
It's
a
about the experience and that emotional need.
Yeah, I agree with him to an extent. Now, here's the
Yeah,
thing.
because what if
I'll
it's
tell
just
you
a
like this.
moment of
In-
weakness?
See, now the leg is up. Okay.
That
Oh,
happens
God.
too.
I love the fact, right? It's just like I just have to be an analyzer at times. And I love the fact that the terminology that we're using. We have one person using the word cheating. We have one person using the word infidelity.
Okay.
Now, even though they kind of mean the same thing, I feel like there's different levels of severity for each.
Okay.
In my opinion, this is my opinion, and this is based on stigmas. Cheatings are for usually relationships that don't really have a end date or a set date to be married. Infidelity is usually a real serious relationship. Typically use infidelities and affairs within marriage or potential to be married people. Cheating, I feel like it's a boyfriend or a girlfriend. We've been dating for 6 months, and I cheated on you.
The act is still the same. The impact and the consequence is still the same. So whether you put a dress on it, a pig is a pig.
Yeah, no,
You
100%.
be trying to dress it up, right? You see that? I'm glad you caught it.
But but the funny thing is, like, even though we dress it up, why have two words that mean the same thing?
Well, but that's what synonyms
I
are.
mean, I was
I
just
have
about to say
never-
it's just a synonym.
No, that's not a synonym. These are direct of the same. Synonyms can also have slightly different meanings. These are directly the same.
No,
I don't-
synonyms are typically
Okay, so
like.
what do you think? Would you
replaceable.
use them
Typically.
interchangeably, or do
To
you
me,
think that
they're
they have?
exactly the
But-
same thing?
So now,
the clinical term is just
have you
infidelity.
ever been? Well, not you, because you've been married for 10 years, or with your
10
partner
years
for
back.
10 years. No one that I've ever met in my life had a girlfriend that they did not see that they were marrying. They were just a girlfriend, right? Has said, "Damn, bro, I was trying to, but did an act of infidelity." No, it doesn't happen. It's usually I cheated or I got caught cheating. I wasn't caught, being an infidel. Like,
No,
But he's a
client-
professional.
No client has
therapist.
ever came
He
to me
can
and said,
use
"Hey,
the
Mac,
word.
I committed an act of infidelity." No,
Yeah.
it's like, "Yo, bro, I cheated, and I need help."
I mean, words matter, and I say that all the time. But like in this case, does it really matter?
I'm trying to tell you the severity from a guy's lens.
But he's
I am a
also
guy,
using
too.
He's not
it.
just a regular guy,
Like,
though. Like,
exactly, but he's
he's
a
a guy-
professional, and
he's
he's
a-
using the
wait, time out.
clinical.
Stop it. We're not.
Am I saying anything wrong?
I'm gonna say this. I don't want to argue about.
Stonewall right now.
Yes.
No,
Oh, okay.
no. I
Don't
do that. by the way.
Mac. What are you doing, bro?
Being on my side.
I'm
Being
checking
on my
in.
side.
So
Whoa.
actually,
There's no conversation. We didn't.
so
He's
he's
kicking me to the
actually
curb.
right? Because when a man cheat, a woman is more likely to try to make the relationship work because society has conditioned women to believe to fight for their family. When a man cheat, men are taught to replace their injuries. Meaning that
Don't smirk, Aaron.
if you cheat on a man,
How am
more
I
than
smirking?
likely he's just going to replace you because he cannot deal with the consequences of being cheated on and the emotional labor that it requires to actually rebuild the relationship. Men tend to start to visualize things, right? Men tend to start feeling personally attacked in ways that they cannot comprehend. So it's a lot easier to evade those emotions and abandon it and just replace their partner thinking that's going to take it away. But in reality, that PTSD will last up to 5 years. So even though you might think it's not affecting you, but brother, it is. No matter who you're with, their cell phone ring, you're triggered.
Brother, it is.
They have not texted, you're triggered. They're dressed a certain way to go out without you, you are triggered, right? So men and women deal with infidelity differently based on social conditioning. And now, if we could even take it to another route, is that women have the most to lose through a divorce. So therefore,
Wait. Say that again because this comes up all the time.
Aaron
I-
said,
oh,
not
I know.
Aaron Campbell.
Oh, I
Where
know.
men are saying I see this every day in the comments. The reason why men are no longer seeking to get married in droves is because they believe that they have so much more to lose.
it's not true.
Am I wrong? You see this?
I mean, not in the comments, but I've definitely.
As a general matter.
Yeah, as a general matter.
Rico?
Any man with money, yes, he does. I don't care what clinical scientist has to say about that.
Okay, but that's assuming
We know
that
this.
it's.
No, we know this.
Maybe
Maybe if we take all men in general, because not again, 85% of this country does not make $100,000 a year, so I can understand. But if we taking people who make money, only 5% of women make over six figures.
But
That's
you're-
such a small
but that's
percentage
assuming
of
the
people,
type
though.
of relationship
I'm just-
where a
I'm
man
just
makes
talking
like
to my
a
bracket.
significantly amount more than a
I'm talking to
woman.
my
and we're
Not all
also only
relationships.
talking about money. There's way more to lose than just
What about
money.
the custody?
business.
So
The kids.
when a man or woman get divorced, in most cases, the women tend to have a higher rate of custody of the children, right?
Which is unfortunate.
So that means that at any time she wants to go out, have some alone time, or go on vacation, and etc., she got to figure out what babysitting looks like. It's very, very easy for the partner that doesn't have the majority of the custody to just say, "Yo, I can make it today."
bullshit.
Right? That happens. Hold on. There's more.
He's a new dad.
I'm a real dad,
I'm a
not
new
a new
dad,
dad.
Oh.
2 kids, 2 under 2. Do not recommend.
Oh wow.
Right? And also again, like having the children primarily with you requires that you are being more thoughtful about your schedule, where you could go to, and all of the responsibilities that requires. Secondly, your social circle and your support network tend to shame single moms. We've seen it all over social media. It's their main attack. You're a single mom, so something is wrong with you. Third, finances, your favorite subject. Men are more likely to make men make on average 6 times more money than women. So that means this divorced woman has less income and more responsibilities when you tie in with the children. So on average, women have a lot more to lose socially, financially, and in terms of responsibility when it comes to males. Hence why they try very hard to maintain their relationship. On average, out of all of the infidelity couples that I have served, 99% of the first phone calls and consultation calls are initiated by women.
I kind of want to go back to dealing with the infidelity.
Uh-huh.
You mentioned that men typically have a harder time when they're on the receiving end
Yes.
because they're not good with their words. They don't know how to put their feelings into words, do the work X, Y, and Z, whatever. What outside of the words and explaining how they're feeling, what is the hardest thing? Oh, sorry. What is like the hardest thing that you see men trying to get over the hump, and like what's the hardest thing for women trying to get over the hump?
Oh, excellent question. So I would say that the one of the biggest hurdle that men are having and are trying to work through is having the vocabulary to express themselves, right? Because a lot of 96% of the time, the way you start a conversation is exactly how it's going to end. So there's a difference between saying you're selfish versus, hey babe, lately I've been feeling neglected and unwanted. You're saying the same thing, but you need the right words and the feeling words because that's what your partner can identify. So if I'm saying you never and you always, that's me attacking you, and you're automatically going to defend yourself. So what I have found is that a lot of men are learning the vocabulary and as well as the skill and the science needed to properly express themselves. Now, in return, there is a lot of work also being done on their female partners to learn how to listen, right? But it's easier to listen when emotional words and feelings are being used in personal attacks.
Mhm.
It is not the receiver's responsibility to try to decipher what you're trying to say. Me saying you're selfish and I'm doing it from a space of love and I'm criticizing you and you're just supposed to not take it personal, that's impossible. We really need to stop utilizing these concepts that are not realistic and start to look at human nature and the impact of what we're doing, right? So it's very important to start a conversation properly, to label your feelings so that your partner has a sense and a time to understand. But here's the step that everybody missed. If we're together, right, and I just told you that I've been feeling neglected, unwanted, and that's really hurting my confidence and security in the relationship, how should you respond to that?
I think my question would be, no, Alan. I think my question would be like, what exactly am I doing to make you feel that way?
That's excellent, but not the right answer. So when somebody express themselves to you and have a complaint, the first thing you do is summarize. What I heard you say is that lately you have not been feeling wanted and desired in this relationship, and my lack of presence and words of affirmation have made you feel neglected. First step. Second step is I'm going to validate you to make sure that you feel understood prior to responding to you. I can understand what it feels like to be neglected and unwanted. I could clearly see how that is detrimental to the relationship and how that would affect the way that you view yourself and exactly the way that you feel in this relationship in terms of safety and security.
Mac, does that take some form of emotional maturity, some emotional
very beautiful.
intelligence?
So I have one more step.
Never had that.
I had a question
I
for
have
this.
one more
Like,
step. So
in real life.
do the
Never
final
had
step?
kind
Yeah,
of-
you
I
can
need
definitely
different
say
women.
TV,
Can I
Mac.
do the final step?
You can
I mean,
definitely
it
do the
sounds-
final step.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the third step is, do you feel understood?
You asking me?
Yeah.
No, he's saying
After summarizing
After
and
those
I've
2 steps.
validated, I'm
Uh-huh.
going to ask you, do you feel understood?
yeah.
Because
Oh.
I cannot respond until you felt heard. If not, I'm
Oh,
going
I
to
see.
share my perspective. Then you go back and share your perspective. We're not going to get nowhere because nobody's feeling understood, right?
Mm.
So being able to sit back and be disciplined enough to hear you, make sense of what you said, and validate that. And validation does not mean that you agree. Validation means I understand. Conflict does not apply to agreement because we can see the same thing, have the same experience, but have 2 different perspectives of it. So it's true for me because it's subjective to me. My feelings are true and they're right, and your feelings are true and they're right. So we're not debating who's right or wrong. So that's why the validation and the understanding is needed before we can even proceed to have a conversation. So those are the 3 steps that most people are not aware of. And those are the 3 steps that requires the most discipline. Like, I'll be in session and the couple like, and they're turning away and they're moving their body. I'm like, how does the discomfort feel? Like, I just want to say what I want to say. I'm like, cool, sit with it. It's not time for that. Because that's what you need to create a masterful relationship. Not a mediocre, a masterful relationship.
Damn. I hope y'all gonna bullet point these on the.
I hope
on
so
the
too,
slate.
because
honestly,
there's a
I
lot
would have been
of
like, what you
emotional regulation.
Yeah.
Matt, can you talk, because that takes a lot of emotional regulation, not even just the emotional intelligence and maturity to get to that point, but to be able to get to the point where, because our natural reaction is to get into defense mode. It is a natural human
Once you're
reaction.
attacked.
Yeah, because when you're in a relationship, right, and your partner comes to you with something that is like, I'm dissatisfied or I'm angry or I'm upset,
But
right?
that's not critical.
But even
you
isn't
get
in the
defensive.
defense.
So how do you get your clients to get to the point where they can regulate some of those emotions?
Okay. So I think that we're having a misconception of what defensiveness looks like. If I attack you, you're gonna defend yourself. If I'm criticizing you, you're gonna defend yourself. So me saying you're selfish, you don't care about us, you don't care about this family, it's going to force you to defend yourself, because that's the human reaction to being criticized. But if I'm saying I feel neglected and undesired, I'm not attacking you. So your need to defend yourself is not as high as the previous statements.
But still there though.
That's not necessarily
Some
true.
of it is there, but not to the same degree that you feel like you want to tell me that I'm wrong.
Wait, time out. Because every man is gonna tell you, listen, we've been in relationships that we've went about this way, and even it got to a point in my personal life, previous relationship, where I was like, yo, you know what? How I try to speak to this person, they don't receive it. I called my best friend. I said, yo, you already know what's going on. You know the situation. You might be able to say things differently than me, right? And we can say things differently with no attacking, no you words, no direct words. Everything is going to be on my end. And it still can be taken as an attack.
Don't tell me, show me. So make
so
a
what-
statement right now.
So what I'm saying is, wait,
No, I'm here. I got you.
breathe. So let's say if I said I felt neglected, I felt you didn't, or I felt I was not being heard in the
Yes.
conversation that X, Y, and Z happened. And the first thing that always happens is, so you're saying,
Yeah,
so you're saying I don't understand you?
correct.
And then and what I'm trying to say is, now with what Marie is saying, is it's not emotional regulation on one side. It's emotional regulation on both sides. Because I can do all the practice that I want. I could use all the proper precautionary words and vocabulary. But if the person still deems it as an attack, and I'm not going to lie, I feel like I say a lot of things and people say a lot of things and women hear only one part of it and then turn it to a whole nother thing. And always my first question is that what you got from what I said? And then we try to unpack the whole thing. So
Excellent.
the emotional regulation is not always on the guy's side.
Agreed.
And I think that that's one thing that we have to be understood, because in my notes that I've taken,
He was down there
I
scribbling.
heard a lot of things and I'm like, whoa. So one of the key things that you said was feeling words, right?
Yes, sir.
And my issue with feeling words is usually, first of all, people know how I feel about the word feelings. You know, usually the feelings are derived, basically a social construct of what you should feel or how you should take certain things that are being said. It's all a social construct, which then becomes a one-sided thing. Because now if I say X, Y, and Z, whatever it may be, one woman can deem it this way, one woman can deem it that way, and now I'm literally the person trying to figure out, how do I speak to this person? And sometimes it doesn't matter how you speak to a person, whether or not, it doesn't matter how you speak to a person, because whether or not, whichever avenue you go, they cannot receive it the way that it needs to be received.
Good point. Good point. And that's why it's called couples therapy, right? Not only am I coaching you how to identify your feelings and how to express yourself, but I'm also instructing your partner on the proper way to respond, right? Because that's not
Yeah, receive.
natural to us,
Yeah.
right? It's not natural. It's not natural hearing how my behaviors impacted you. I automatically want to say, no, that's not true, because from my perspective, it's not true. But we're not speaking of agreement, right? So a lot of couples tend to get stuck on the validation because they're arguing agreement. So you're right. You can try your best and be the best communicator in the world, right? And label and do all of the steps that I said at first. But if your partner doesn't learn how to listen and how to respond, then it's not going to be effective. Hence the term couples therapy. All of the partners in the relationship must be present because the knowledge and the skill must be applied to everyone.
And I say that, and I'm so glad you said that. So I say all of this and bring in full circle because one of the things that was mentioned was that men don't, and it's not verbatim, but
Mhm.
men have the hardest time, being vocal with women. And I said this on a previous podcast. It's really not that. The real thing is we're vocal, but not in the way that they're able to digest it.
To decipher.
Yeah, decipher, receive, and execute. And I feel like that's unfair because for a long time we weren't able to understand women. In fact, I don't even think men understand women right now, right? So nobody understands each other. So when it comes to being able to communicate and receive it, and what was the word that you used instead of receive?
Validate.
No,
Decipher.
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 Decipher what's actually being said per person. So a lot of things that we go ahead and we try to run with narratives because we talk about, averages. And there's so many variables that play along with these averages. And the biggest variable that plays along is just the simple fact that it's actually a miscommunication and the inability to decipher on both sides. And maybe, not me because I'm great, people should start seeking therapy before they become a couple.
So on average, couples wait 6 years too late before going to couples therapy, right? So I am used to seeing a lot of couples where divorce is the next step, and they're just checking
Trying to
this
save it.
box. Communication is a skill and it's a science. It's something that we need to learn and practice. I speak French fluently. I'm sure you don't, right?
Of course I do. 𝗔𝗕 𝗧𝗵𝗲.
So if I spoke French to you and you don't understand what I said, that's not your fault.
Yeah.
That's on me because I'm the one that's communicating to you,
Got it.
right? So in a lot of times in couples, we're talking to our partner, but we're not speaking in a manner that they can understand and that they can decipher.
Right. Yeah.
That's why it's very important to identify exactly how you feel. So yes, us men, we are comfortable with 3 emotions: anger, happiness, and sadness, right? So when it's time to label how we feel, we struggle with that.
Do you know the 3 or the most feelings that women are comfortable with?
Women feel everything under the sun and have the ability to label that because that's how they've been conditioned in society. Us men were taught to just think of corporate America, right? As a man, you're supposed to go there, show no feelings, and just take over and climb up that ladder.
Right, man.
For women, it's very different. They are taught to be emotional, express themselves, and know how they are feeling. So that's why when men transition to being in a relationship, there goes the mismatch. Because outside of the house, I'm supposed to be alpha and just have tunnel vision. But at home, a different version of me is required, and I don't know how to make that switch because I've never experienced it yet.
Is that a survival thing?
Outside of the house, yes, but at home, I actually need comfort. I actually need softness. I actually need closeness. I actually need emotional intelligence and vulnerability. All of the things that don't lead to success outside of the house.
All right. Well, I mean, listen, they go hand in hand.
Wait, but
Well, come on, bro. I got a whole list. I've been waiting.
No.
I let Erin go all her pen pads and all that.
What are you talking
I know, but you guys been.
No, I actually want you to have an
I'm about to start
opportunity.
stonewalling for real. Listen, 30-year-old me, I have no tolerance.
Okay, it's
10
about-
minutes.
There is an antidote to that.
Huh?
There's an antidote.
I don't want the
to
antidote.
Stonewalling.
Tell Amanda.
do
Amanda is a
I
victim
know.
of stonewalling.
I know.
No, what's the antidote actually for stonewalling? That's something dope.
So stonewalling happens when your heart rate surpasses 100 beats a minute or 80 beats if you're very fit. So someone like you, I would, if we were in session, I would put a pulse oximeter on your finger so I can control your heart rate throughout our conversations. The minute you pass 80, you can no longer listen. Your brain has released stress hormones and your heart rate is so elevated that you enter fight, flight, or freeze. Right? In that space, you're saying things that you don't mean. You're just attacking. It's not going to work. So that's when I ask you to take a 20-minute break, go on opposite end of the home, engage in a self-care activity. Don't say anything under your breath. Go so far from each other. Even if you're yelling, you can't hear each other. To allow your body a time to process those hormones. And now you can re-enter a state where you can actually listen and communicate. So it's all about taking an effective break.
Time out.
I have a question, right? I said a lot of.
That's really what it is.
Yeah,
Go in
yeah,
that
I'm
corner.
gonna
You
do
go
the
in that
goddamn
corner.
All right,
time out.
I don't know. I just want him to answer the initial question that I asked
Oh, I'm sorry.
what
What
was
was
that?
that?
about like the hardest things for men to get over and women to get over when it comes to infidelity.
Oh, to infidelity?
That's where I went.
The hardest thing to get over is the same concept. Is the fact now there is a breach
You're
of
not.
trust
You're good.
and security in this relationship.
Is that the same for
Yes.
both? Okay.
Yes, because it all comes down to trust. Like, I can no longer trust you. So when you say you go somewhere, are you really going where you say you're going to go? Right? Because the number one thing that's important for women is trustworthiness, not security, because that comes after and that takes a while. Are you who you say you are? Do you do the things that you say you're going to do? So now if I found out that you stepped out on this marriage or this relationship, are you who you say you are? Can I really trust you? And it's the same concept for men as well. Like, can I trust you? Because now there's no breach of trust. So what's actually needed is a conversation where the person that cheated must answer all of the questions that your partner have. Because we all create a narrative as to what happened and what's the cause of it, right? So the person that cheated needs to be honest about everything. But at the same time, the one that's asking the questions, there are certain questions that you can ask because that's just going to perpetuate the trauma, right? You don't ask if it was bigger or if things were better or any of that because that doesn't help. That's just going to make everything worse, right? And then once that has been reached and you've updated your narrative, now we go to the accountability. Why did you step out? What emotional need was not being met? And that's where the issue starts. Because now you have the person that cheated sharing, hey, I've been feeling unwanted. I've gotten no attention from you. And I've been missing that. And the other partner must take accountability.
But what if the problem was it was bigger? We got to know that. Because you can't say we can't ask
Still
certain
cheated.
questions.
But the person was back.
First
So
of all,
that-
if we're gonna
does that make you feel
discuss
better?
Infidelity, you got me fucking up the word. If we're gonna discuss infidelity, like we might as well just put everything on the table. Why are any questions left out? I understand why you said like it doesn't help the conversation or it might just make things worse. But what if that's a part of the problem?
Okay. So now so when I asked what emotional need was not being met was that I was not being satisfied sexually. And I've tried to voice that and I've tried to do things to address that, but those things were not received properly.
Is that when it's okay to ask if it was better?
Knowing that if it was better or not doesn't help solve the issue. Because now the partner that didn't cheat must take accountability. I must say, you know what? You have tried to spice things up. We have not been having as much sex. I've not put in as much effort needed in our sex life. Until that accountability is reached, we can go to step 2. Okay. So if somebody... Okay.
Yeah, not the 3 though. That
Do you
is
see
like-
how men think though?
What is
if
the-
somebody cheated with you with a 3, at the end of the day, they
Women
cheated.
think
They
the same
cheated.
thing,
Like
right?
it
No,
doesn't
because
matter.
Cheating is
Women think
cheating.
The same thing. If you cheat
Whether it's
on
with
a-
Beyonce or
if I cheat
I
on
think
my
I
girl
wanna
today
know-
with Beyonce, she will understand.
I think
bro.
that I want to know that you stepped out and it wasn't what you thought it was, so that
But
my
it never-
ego was still intact.
so 60% of infidelity lasts one day. It's very rare.
You hear them talking about a weekend?
It's Or
I'm
Or-
trying to
That was
tell you,
for a
his
different
numbers
reason.
are not right. Those numbers are dated. They are not clinically proven with the 2018 and above
no,
years.
it's accurate. It's accurate. So it's very it's only about 5 to 10% of affairs that last years, right? Because eventually,
You said affairs versus infidelity.
and affairs and fidelity, same concept, cheating.
Affair and
I'm using
infidelity
the
is
same
not
words.
the same thing.
I'm using the same words, right? It's the same meaning, right? So it's very rare.
Wait,
that,
hold on, Miri. What's the definition of affair?
Okay, so I do
What's the
I
definition of
do
affair,
agree with
Miri?
Rico to a degree in terms of an affair,
has a
as
different
opposed to
connotation.
cheating, right? So let's say I have an affair with someone where we establish a relationship, a routine, the deception, whatever we do, as opposed to I have a one night stand, right? Now the
That's the
betrayal,
60%,
the
yeah.
betrayal is a betrayal, right? Although it differs with men and women in terms of emotional cheating as opposed to sexual cheating. We don't have to get into that. So yeah, I do agree that, in terms of having an affair and and cheating might differ a little bit, especially when we're talking about our everyday people. Having an affair, especially as a married woman, if my partner has an affair as opposed to if he cheated, I don't know. It's
Okay.
not the same.
An affair. I would say, Miri. An affair is a real relationship within a relationship. Infidelity.
No, outside of the
Outside of your
relationship.
relationship.
Well, I'm saying while you're
I
in,
got you,
yeah,
I
so
got
outside,
you.
yeah,
Yeah.
and infidelity. This is just infidelity.
There's
Infidelity
layers.
is more so like can be
hard,
a one
right?
night stand.
Hard to say
It can be now. This is not necessarily the actual definition because I don't know for sure. For sure, this is what I think me and a lot of the people deem the difference is.
So the process of an affair and infidelity is exactly the same. You're saying affair because you're thinking more long term.
Mhm.
On average, guys are not really just going somewhere and find someone and they're having sex with that quickly. Some do, but
Thank you.
it's not a high percentage, right?
Nah, you gotta be top tier. Top G.
Exactly. So in reality, what happens is that my emotional needs are not being met in the relationship. So now I'm spending more time outside. I meet someone, right? We're talking or we're seeing each other more. It's just friendship. We're just talking. It's nothing serious, right? But we're finding more ways to see each other. Then I start to say, my life would be better with that person, right? So I start to daydream of what our relationship would look like outside of my partner. And I'm not even telling my partner that I'm having a friendship with that person, right? Then we start spending more time together and then feelings kick in and then the physicality take place. So when we say affair, we're talking about the process, but the act is still the same. So even if we're speaking from a one night stand, you still have to go outside. You got to meet someone. You got to talk to them, right? And then you got to get in bed with them. It's just a faster process of the affair, but it's still an affair. However, it's
Can
done.
you
When he
can
said
you
get in bed with them, I was
differentiate,
like,
Mac?
or the kitchen table.
Mac,
Like,
can
whatever.
you differentiate the emotional attachment and difference, right? So if I go out and I have a one night stand with someone and I never see this person again, it was just a sexual relationship, as opposed to building an emotional attachment with someone that I've been having an affair with for 2 years. And now it's eliciting,
Now I love you
responses
both.
like I love you and things like that. Can you differentiate that when it comes to couples therapy?
Yes. So, hence why 60% of affairs or infidelity last one day, right? Because usually, whoever cheats feels bad, comes home, I'd either share or not share, but realize that they did something wrong. It signals to them our relationship is really in trouble. But in reality, it's very rare that the men would leave their wife for the other woman because they have learned how to compartmentalize the two. However, for women, they really fall for the individual that they're having an affair with. It's a lot more emotional and the attachment is a lot greater to the point that they might even leave, they're more likely to leave their marriage for that person.
That's it. You get 2 fist pumps. Yeah, except the dude don't want her like that.
Mac, is
What's
that
your,
true?
what's your average
Can
on
you,
that?
is that true though?
Well, I said it depends. I don't know nothing about what the other person is thinking. But if you just think about it, right, a woman has to do a lot more to carry out an affair. A lot more lies, taking more time away from the household, taking more time away from their children or their family. All the things that society has conditioned them to believe. While a man has no issues doing that because most men are not really as involved within the family day to day as women are. The invisible load, right? Women just have a lot more responsibilities, and the tasks are never equal.
All right, so let's go because I got
Sit
some
back.
shenanigans for you, my boy. The gang is outside. It's not back, it's here. Okay, first things first.
Yes, sir.
All right, so to answer Aaron's question, because I don't feel like you did it, the reason why men don't want to take back women when they cheat, oftentimes,
That wasn't my question.
I was about to say.
you said men can't recuperate.
She was
She
asking
said, "What's the different
hardest thing?
hardest hurdles for men
Biggest
to get
hurdle.
over versus the hardest hurdles for women to get over?"
Yeah.
Right?
Maybe I wasn't able to decipher.
And he want to be so high and mighty about some.
And,
But-
I'm
but-
very deliberate with
hold
my
on.
language.
So can I also add that men tend to feel a sense of ownership
Of
over
course.
their women, right?
I'm going to give you even factual proof out of your own mouth for that.
Talk to me.
Right?
Give it to me. Pause.
Men have a hard time dealing. Whoa, yeah, pause. Men have a hard time dealing with women cheating. One that we did just disclose that it's usually more emotional driven, right? Also, on top of that, it was stated, and I quote, men make on average about 6 times more than a woman.
Yes.
Okay. So now, if I'm a man and I'm paying for you, right? Not paying for you to own you, but I'm paying. You get what I'm saying?
What are you paying?
What are you paying?
Everything.
Where are we going with
You're
this?
paying for her?
I'm legitimately
I wouldn't let
I'm legitimately paying the workload for our life. The financials, if on average, quote unquote, men are making 6 times more than a woman, I'm assuming he's taking on 6 times more of the financial responsibilities.
So you own me?
It's not that I own you, but when you cheat on me, it hurts more because I was already giving out more. So if
money.
no, time. I already said, listen, we're not going to do this no more. Money and time are not the same. All
Right.
That's true.
I never brought up time.
So if on average, because we're talking about average, that means average men are actually working jobs. They're making whatever amount of money and they're making 6 times more. If I'm a dude and I'm legitimately funding our life and lifestyle, whether it looks like yachts or whether it looks like Honda Civics, it does not matter. I'm the one that's taking on the workload. When you cheat on me, it hurts more. Now, this is me being new school, Rico. If we go 50-50 and you cheat on me, I'm not going to care as much as if I was actually paying for everything.
Yes, and this is the prime example on how men and women respond differently to infidelity. A man, as he stated, just say, stay over there. I don't want you no more. I don't even care as to what has happened. I'm not even going to allow myself to try to work through it. Now just stay over there because there's nothing wrong that I could have done. While a woman would say, so what happened? What caused it? And my man here gave us the answer. He spoke for 3 minutes about providing income. But what caused the cheating in most cases is a lack of presence. Men are so focused being the provider that they're just not around.
What the
They're not
fuck options do
present.
you have?
Right? So the lack of presence leads to the lack of desire, the lack of feeling wanted, supported, and etc. And let's also add, when a man is the sole provider, they feel entitled to certain treatment. I shouldn't have to do this. I shouldn't have to help. I shouldn't have to do A, B, C, and D. So the woman is experiencing all of that, all of those responsibilities, and feel like they're on an island by themselves.
Okay,
with no
Max,
life
stop.
line.
We're not going to keep on running with this narrative. What I will say, and I do agree, right, to a certain extent, in the sense of any man that, how about this? I'll make it even better for you because I know a lot about you now.
Okay.
People,
I'm like, I'm scared for you. Like, what is he about to say?
right? It doesn't take a man or a woman. I know whose side you're on here. people
I'm on the side of the relationship.
no,
Thank
no,
you.
no, you're not.
He's not picking sides.
Listen, people who actually take on all the financial obligations, and because we keep on trying to put it in a sense of just a monetary thing and completely discrediting the hours of sacrifice and the willingness to do such, right? Which is really more important than the actual monetary thing, right? But people, i.e., Gabrielle Union, feels entitled to do what they want because they're already taking on the burden or more weight of survival.
That's not actually what she said.
Yes, what she said was she felt she could cheat because she paid all the bills.
And what's the rest
That's
of the
what.
story?
No, wait, hold on. That's what was said.
Well,
Okay.
no, what is the rest of
That's
it?
cool. Let me finish. Stop interrupting me. Decipher here. Decipher.
Check you in the comments.
Decipher. I don't need your help. So what I will say
Check
is
him in the comments, y'all.
people who
You
are
are
already
rude today.
taking people who are already taking the financial burden because of the sacrifice and the willingness that they're already putting forth. Of course, they're going to take things a little bit more personal. Of course, they're going to be more hurt. Of course, they're going to have a sense of entitlement. Same thing as a worker. Now, I'm not going to sit here and try to and tell you human nature doesn't exist. Do you have a boss?
I'm my own boss.
Beautiful. Now, a lot of people who are their own boss and or have an own boss, that person usually is going to dictate what a lot of things happens around them. Am I right or wrong?
So here's the
It's a
mistake.
yes or no, Max.
It's never a yes or no, Rico.
Oh,
You
I
know
just
that.
need a yes or no.
It's-
Give me
so-
on average
so
then.
the answer is no.
On average is no.
The answer is no.
Okay,
And
cool.
here's why, right?
Wait, no. You hold on to that and let me
Sir,
finish.
go ahead. It's your platform. I'm here.
No, it's our platform.
Yes.
It's our platform.
Stand corrected.
So what I'm saying is most times, and maybe I might live a different life than you, and maybe I saw different things, but men, women, I don't care who you are, when you are of a higher dominant position, you tend to feel entitled. And it's not necessarily just on a relationship aspect, but it's across all aspects, which I can understand why it then falls into the play of a relationship.
I have one question for you, real quick, if I may. If you had to choose being the sole provider or stay-at-home dad,
Mhm.
which one would you choose?
Well, everybody knows me, and I say I will always choose stay-at-home dad.
Have you been a stay-at-home dad?
Yes, I have.
Full time?
Yes, I have.
For how long?
30 days.
How was that?
It was not the best, but I tell you
Do you
what.
see the point that I'm trying to make here?
But I tell you what, it's worse. It's worse. But see, everybody's different. Like, there's a lot of men who have what we call toxic masculinity. They feel the need to have certain finances so they can run and control and regulate the relationship. I don't need that.
So the point that I was trying to make is that the at-home parent is actually experiencing more burden than the one that's being the sole provider. Because you're home with kids all day. And then when your partner comes home, they say, yo, I worked all day. I'm tired. I can't help you. Well, he or she has also been working all day at home and get no relief. I think that the concept that we are missing here is that when you're in a relationship or in a partnership, it's all about finding ways to share the load, right? And how to be present for that. It doesn't matter what your title outside of the home is, but when you're home, we're partners, right? And we have to define exactly what are your responsibilities inside a home and what are your responsibilities outside of the home. So the point that we have made thus far is that when one person is the provider financially, they don't feel the need to contribute to the household the way that their partner needs them to contribute, right? So I think this year, let's rid ourselves of this concept of relationships and let's enter partnerships. Because partnerships are negotiated, while relationships tend to carry roles that are no longer applicable to today's societal norms, right? So if I am the superstar and I am the sole provider, right, and now I'm in this relationship, we can sit down and negotiate what is my role going to look like inside and outside of the home. It's the same concept, right? It's being able to sit and have a conversation on how we're going to manage this relationship and make sure there's an agreement. The resentment starts when you feel like I shouldn't have to do this because of this.
Mhm.
And it was never agreed upon with your partner.
So what's your opinion on the women who make the same as men and say they should not have to go 50-50?
That's for them and their partner to decide on.
Exactly.
You can't tell as a couples therapist, I don't tell people what to do
What's your
in
opinion?
their relationship.
What's your opinion?
My opinion is whatever works for you, works for you.
Bullshit.
And in different
He's a
seasons,
professional. He
that
can't-
might look
Because
different.
that's not realistic. Because what we want to do, right, is we want to make solutions. That's what I want. And I'm telling you like this. If any man and woman both work 40 hours a week and they making relatively the same, you're creating a recipe for disaster if you're actually expecting one person to carry more of a financial burden, right? Because realistically, you're both getting home at 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, let's just say, or hypothetically. You're only going to be home together for 5 or 6 hours before you go to sleep. So now there's not too much of a difference between your two schedules in that 5-6 hours a day from Monday through Friday. Now, one person is carrying on more burden than the other. Yeah, you can say, hey, guess what? For me, I just need, reassurance and words of affirmations. But that's going to run out, and that's not realistic, and it's not sustainable for the longevity of a relationship. So when I'm saying you're talking about people negotiating roles to balance the workload,
to balance all aspect of the relationship,
all aspect,
including the finances.
including the finances.
Yes, sir.
So now what I'm saying is a good, in my opinion, solution with that statement would be, hey, listen, if you are both making the same amount of money, ladies and gentlemen, you both need to be partners across the board.
I don't disagree with you.
That's what he said.
No, that's not what
Yes,
he
it
said.
is.
He did say partnership.
What I'm saying is the
That's
point
not,
that I'm trying
it's
to
not
make.
what he said.
Yes,
So,
it is.
What I'm saying is it's for you and your partner to decide how we're going to share the load across the relationship, right?
Not just financial.
Correct. It includes everything. Some men, their identity is, I got to pay the rent. That's my responsibility.
Why is that?
Because that's what they believe in. It might be the way that they are conditioned. It might be that's how they feel like they are the man.
Or maybe that's a social construct.
It could be.
No, it is. I don't do coulds. It is.
Okay.
It is a social
But
construct.
if that's what he wants to do, it goes back to what he's saying.
But
It's
no,
just a conversation.
But it's not just a conversation. We're talking about reality here.
you
Reality.
don't have conversations in reality.
No, but I feel like in reality, not all men pay.
I think
of the rent.
I think the challenge that's happening is there is a I don't want to say it's a trend where or maybe it's a narrative where women are saying that my money is my money, your money is our money. And I think that's what's happening, and I think that's what Rico is talking about in terms of the social construct where if we both make the same amount of money, why is it that this is not a partnership? And women are expecting that kind of notion. Again, like I said, my money is my money, your money is our money. No, why isn't both money our monies, and let's build from there? And
Can
think that's what he's
can
saying.
I answer it? I feel that again, he's already given this answer twice. What he's saying is that in those particular relationships where things appear to be equal as far as how many hours you work outside the house, how much money you bring home, you have to have a discussion with your partner such that you identify who's good at X, who's good at Y, who's good at this, and who's good at that. So you figure out who's going to do what. And granted, you might have a husband or a man or whatever that says, you know what? I believe that at a minimum, I should provide a roof over my family's head. Cool. You have a discussion about that. That doesn't mean that there aren't a gazillion other bills that need to be paid. You still got insurance. You still got investments. You still got utilities. You still got a car note, health insurance, life insurance, all these other things that most likely that amount surpasses just the rent. So you have a constructive discussion to figure out how this burden is going to be shared. And that's what he said like 3 times already. So I guess and I understand what Maria is saying about social construct. Cool. But social constructs, you can't let that drive your house.
Thank you. This is what needs to be said. All that other.
We're saying the same
No,
thing.
we're
Yes,
not.
you
I feel like it too.
Oh my.
Go ahead.
This is the thing. Like,
Say it in the language so that like the people.
Understand?
I'm sorry.
Right.
Like, for those of y'all who agree that they're saying the same thing, great. But for those of y'all who don't, let me break it down. So he's saying a conversation needs to be had. However, Rico is more concerned with what outside people think or what society thinks and imposes that onto people in the household. First of all, who gives a damn? Like, these people not in your house. Why do you care? Why are you even concerning yourself with what other people are thinking regarding what goes on in your house? Because you know who not paying a bill in my house? The people outside my door. You know who ain't got nothing to say about what going on in my house? The people outside my door. Beggars ain't got nothing to say. My mama ain't got nothing to say. If you don't put something on it, I don't want to hear from you.
Yeah.
Period. Point blank. I do not want to hear your opinion. I don't want to hear nothing. That goes for anybody and everybody. In real talk, that's how you need to run your house.
And
Tell 'em, Aaron.
and
Thank
to
you.
link that to what you're saying, what Marie said, is to remind ourselves that general trauma is passed down from generation to generation. So historically speaking, women were not part of the workforce. They didn't have finances, right? So they learned to take money and put it away as a mean of protecting themselves and their investment in the relationship. We're in 2023, right? So that means when you enter your own relationship, you should be able to have a dialogue on what that's going to look like. Those that say the things that you just stated, I don't pay attention to that, because that's the generational trauma talking, and most of the time they're not even in a relationship themselves, right? Because that mindset alone keeps them out of a relationship. And if we're gonna add that to women, we also need to add it to men that have this belief and take on that responsibility of providing for the household and will tiredly work themselves to death just to obtain that title. When in reality, what's needed for you and your family, your father, right, is being present. I used to work till 8:30 at night. By the time I'm done working, my kids are sleeping. I would be crying like, yo, I spent no time with my kids all week. So now I've changed my hours where I work till 4 o'clock. And from 4 to 7:30, I'm hanging out with my children. My presence meant a lot more than the money that I could have made.
Mm-hmm.
So it's about learning to do the work yourself, decondition yourself, but also having healthy conversations with your partner.
Yeah, no, and basically, thank you, Aaron, because what I was trying to touch on is having a conversation with a programmed mind is pointless.
But
And-
that means you can't. That's not the person for you.
No. But we have to stop thinking
I like that too.
we have
Program
to.
mind. I like that.
You have to stop doing that because majority of people are programmed. It's not like, hey, everybody has their open mind.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
But what I'm saying is the odds are even slimmer when you're talking about people who are not bought into the social construct. People who are not influenced by what is going to be presented to them on their TVs and on their iPhones and iPads. So now when we're being realistic, this is why I love that we're having this conversation where we have to hold it on both sides of the spectrum for all. You know what I'm saying? That's why I asked that question. All right. Now, moving forward, I wanted to also touch on something before you. I mean, hey, I love the fact that we were talking about, I believe it was 60% of men have infidelity. Majority of the times it's within one night. All right.
Most infidelities last.
Not men, is it? Everybody.
Oh, it's general.
general.
Okay, sorry. Now, I wanted to also add something to it, and because we touched on one of the reasonings or the most prevalent reasoning is the lack of emotional needs or not being met at home.
Right.
And I think that this is a different time frame, in a sense where there are more younger people becoming richer at a faster rate than ever, and or just obtaining more financial accolades, right? Maybe they might not make $1 million, maybe they make $300,000.
Mm-hmm.
I think, in my opinion, because we don't really know the whole spectrum of this, of this stat, a lot of people who are having these, one night stands and or short term, fantasies that are, sexual driven fantasies with random people or new people or however long, is because they can actually up their market value more so than ever.
100%.
Right? So now if I'm a guy who, let's say I was only making 60,000 a year, I stumble across an opportunity and now I'm making 150, $200,000 a year. I have the means to travel. Traveling was never happening in the last 10 years than it did prior to the history of America. You know what I'm saying? So now you have somebody who's traveling, experiencing the world, not just the States, the world. You know what I'm saying? They can hop on a flight and go overseas, not drive.
All-inclusive resorts.
All-inclusive resorts. And it's even gotten cheaper. Before flights were way more expensive. And then on top of that, they actually have the means to do it. And I think that's a real big determining factor in these short-term relationships or short-term situationships, I can say, that are being treated as infidelity because they now have these resources. And I'm only speaking from a personal standpoint.
So I agree with you 100%. You cannot judge someone until they obtain a certain level of finances and influence, because that's when you get to really know and assess who they really are. Hence why people that get married so quickly never make sense, right? You got to take your time. You got to be able to assess and see that person in different situations, in different financial statuses and social classes, so you can have an idea of who that person really is. And that's what's all, to me, I'm of the belief that your 20s, I wouldn't recommend being married within that time frame, because you're banking on potential. Versus in your early or late 30s, right? You can really accept the person for who they are at that time, and learning that if they don't reach what you think they're going to reach, you're still okay with that. Because at the end of the day, we're shallow. Men are shallow, women are shallow, right? And that plays a big part into divorce nowadays.
Get a third one.
That's in the record.
We're
I
gonna
got four.
You got one more.
Yeah.
One more.
we're gonna close out in a few, but I wanted to ask you one last question. Actually, this is really a quick follow up to what Rico said
Of course it
about.
Of course
Well,
it
you
is.
said it about being
Didn't have to be
married, about being
bad.
married young.
You don't even know what she's gonna
There's
say.
a lot of people just saying how we should go back to the ways of of the days of where women were marrying young, and because it's better for you. You're not used up. You're not. You don't have all these life experiences that people would call baggage. What's your perspective on that?
And who's saying those things on average?
Well, it's not women.
I rest my case. The dating world was created by men for men. It was never meant for women to prosper in that space, because that's a man's space. So whatever that they can conceptualize to keep you in your box, that allows them to ruminate as much as they need to, that's what they're going to do.
Thank you. I just wanted it to be said from a professional, because y'all want to
That's a
eat us
fact.
up when we say it. So to close out, we got.
Wait, hell no. We're not doing that.
Hold on. Why was I gonna say wait? Rico did not butt in not
No,
one
because I was
time.
waiting for
It's a fact.
Wait.
See, the difference that I do, I'm not like, I don't
Wait,
need
but
to
Rico,
overtalk. I
Rico.
just wait for him to finish.
I still have my other question.
I thought she was about to close out.
No, but I stated I had two questions.
Oh,
My last question is because this is very much related to your specialty. How does a couple, or what is your experience and how you see couples handle like the post infidelity dynamic? Because it can't be the same. Perhaps trust is rebuilt, but the way it looks and feels, it simply can't be the same. So what are your observations on that?
So I think the cheat code is putting the necessary boundaries needed so you can actually learn to trust again, right? So that might be more check-ins, more access to information between the two, and also an understanding that at times you might take 2 steps forward, then the next day you take 5 steps back, because you never know what it is that's going to trigger your partner. I think one of the biggest hurdle that couples experience in general is that after the affair has happened, it's been a few days or a few years or a few months, and they think that their partner should be over it by now. They're gonna experience these symptoms for up to 5 years. And if you do the crime, you also need to be willing to do the time and have that patience and take that accountability consistently. And you also want to make sure that you go through therapy because that's not something you can do on your own. I promise you, you can't.
Great.
All right,
Well-
no, stop. You got your 2 questions. Let me get my response. Then you can close out as need be.
No, you have to close out. 'cause
Okay,
we
perfect.
have-
I'll
it's
do
supposed to be
so.
over now.
So it was said that the dating pool is dominated or created by men, right?
Yes.
For
And-
men. By men, for men.
For men, right? And there's a reasoning for that.
Ooh, do tell.
The do tell is that men are supposed to be the pursuers. Men are supposed to be the providers. And being as such, we should control the dating pool market if we are going to be that. Now, if we want to share providing and pursuing, I don't mind. Then, hey, women, you can go ahead and do whatever you want and you can dictate your own dating pool. But if you are not one of those women who are willing to share the burden of providing or the workload of providing and pursuing, then you do need to abide by the dating pool's rules. That's what I would say.
I have a question for you.
No.
Who makes the first move, men or women?
It depends. My girl made the move on me and got a
on
baby.
Average,
It,
on average, who makes the first
I
move?
would say, on average, in my firm belief, men typically make the first
That's
move.
not true.
Oh, wow.
The women make the first move because the women signals to you that it's okay to approach them.
Have you lived in New York?
Dude, that's how I do.
100%.
You don't hear these
That's
dudes
what
that
I
be
do.
called.
Hear me out, hear
This
me
is
out.
cap. Hold on.
Hear me out. Hear me
No,
out.
I don't want to hear you out.
Can I
They're
finish
getting
though?
their signals mixed a lot.
Can I finish though?
They're
Right.
getting a lot of mixed signals then.
Because I don't know
So
what's
it's
going
either
on.
it's either they're reading the signals wrong or there's no signals there
So-
and they're moving forward, so therefore they are rejected. In reality, the woman signals to you that hey, you can approach me. If you go back to your club days, right? And a girl is dancing. Before you even try to get behind her and catch that dub, she's already given you a signal that it's okay for you to approach her.
Boss, you know what happened to me in my club days, sir? I will get behind them, and this is a real thing. And if you are in the age bracket of 30 or younger, I can only speak for you. When we were in our club days, we didn't identify with a girl first and go ahead and dance with them like Romeo and Juliet. No, we got behind them, and this is what we all experienced.
She looked back.
Now I know what you look like, and now I'm saying it's okay or it's not. Because I got a couple. Nah, I'm good.
So you're making my point.
But
Right?
no, the first move was not made by the woman. It was made by the man. It was confirmed by the woman.
Most of the time, she looks back to be like, who the hell is that? And who gave him access to come behind me?
My
Right?
it's-
So they're gauging it. When it actually succeeds, it's because that woman communicated to you prior that it's okay to approach me.
fuck no.
That's facts, King. That's facts, King.
So listen,
I have
Mac.
stats on that too.
I would say, Mac, it's been great having you. We're gonna agree to disagree on that one, and I'm gonna take one fist pump away. So now you're at 2. But before we close out, go ahead and tell them where they can find you or where they can find you, what you got going on, and yeah.
Yes, of course. So you could find me on Instagram as talk_to_Mac_therapist, talk TLK, the number 2 MAC_therapist. On February 18th, I'm having the V-Day experience, which is designed for couples of all stages and all ages. I know that us fellas, we're tired of doing dinner, buying chocolate and all of that. Those things are overpriced. We don't care about that. So I've created a whole experience where it's designed as a game night where couples go against couple to see who's the number 1 couple.
Oh,
Nice.
I'm
It's
showing
worth
up.
about 9 months of couples therapy and it's being held in Brooklyn. So I hope to see you guys there.
Aw.
Well, this has been great, man. Listen, everybody keep liking, subscribing, supporting. Buy some merch on our website. Subscribe to Datebox. Cash App us, Zelle, Venmo.